Hey, what's everybody? So, Killing for Company, my name's Kellen, and as promised, we're doing a CD update for you. This is just going to be a black metal focused 2021 CD sort of deal. I did a thing for death metal in this, I want to say the summertime, where I just talked about 5 or 6 death metal CDs that I picked up that were worthy of note, and I kind of wanted to do a back end of the year, sort of end of 21, just focusing on black metal releases that came out during the course of the year that I thought were worthy of note, that I potentially just didn't talk about very much, or I didn't see a whole lot of conversation on the VCLT with. So anyway, we're listening to Bleck. How do you want to talk about this? So Odin is the record that's playing in the background for you. I won't spend too much time talking about it, just because you'll have the opportunity to make up your opinion when you're listening to it. But anyway, that is rolling in the background for you. And let's jump into the CDs here. So first one is a project out of Italy called Volmond. Wolves in Turmoil is the name. And with all of these, as usual, I'll take separate photos for you. That way you get a chance to look at the artwork if it doesn't show up too well here on my camera. But I've been playing with different settings on this camera to see how it works out. But what are you getting here with our Volmond release? So it's out of Italy, and it has it listed within Metal Archives as a Black and Doom project. Out of Italy, that would, you say that, the first thing that comes to mind for me is something like Mortuary Drake, which would be completely off. I think it probably shares more in common with the doomier side of German black metal. The band, the lone band member, I believe it's a solo project here, is in a different atmospheric black metal band. The name escapes me at the moment, but which should give you some kind of, small piece of information as to where this project is going, in the sense that it's, while potentially a little bit less well defined by pagan, folk, black metal, atmospheric black metal, by comparison, Volmond has some doomier elements. I think it just lends itself to, the Nagelfar, Lunar Aurora sort of introduction. It's not as suicidal as something like Bethlehem is, for example. So I don't want to go, it's not that side of German black metal, and it's not nearly as nuanced or as intricate as Nagelfar, right? But it is slower. There's moments on this where the riffs sort of kind of take a little bit of time to brew and stir, and you don't have that kind of pure atmospheric focus based on sort of pacing and basking and all that sort of thin tracing guitar tone. It's got a little bit more doom per se, just based off of the sort of the pacing. I was looking really more for bands that were operating a little bit with some degree of like a pagan influence this past year, and Volmond got that for me. It didn't, quite get the pagan side like this Bleck record did, or this is a bit more true, you can probably tell, to like a Nordic side of that. This, goes a little bit further south in terms of its influences coming from Germany and to some degree the occultism that you associate with Italy, but it's not that like pure occult doom that I tend to associate from Italian blackened doom metal. So that'll be our first recommendation for you. This is on Drakkar Productions. I think this is the third release from this band. Third full length, I should say. So first one there for you, that's Volmond. Okay, so this is Ceremonial Torture, and they are the project is finished. Once again, I think this is a single individual behind this. Pretty cool album artwork there for a black metal release. And this is not your traditional, by no means your traditional Finnish black metal. And what I mean by that is if you go into it looking for like Horna or Sargeist, on one hand, you're going to be disappointing. Now, it does bear some semblance to Beherit or Archgo, purely based on the vocal performance and production. So the rest of this sounds like necromantia worship, right? It's super bass heavy. You have all these small pieces of, keys and acoustic instruments, and that is a very different kind of instrumental presentation that you traditionally would get from Finland, right? It sounds way more Greek in tone to me, but the vocal performance is definitely like bestial. It bleeds into the bass and the guitar tone. It echoes. It has that reverberation that is difficult to sort of pinpoint and make clear, sort of definitive lines as to where it falls, just because it's saturating the rest of sort of the room. And if I were to put together a list of bestial records this year, I would almost feel inclined to put this on that list purely based on the so many things that are about this album that are telling you it's meant to be that kind of vile and intense black metal, but the necromantia side really pulls you in a different direction. I think this person, the artist here, I think Goat Prayer is the name of the gentleman behind it. He's definitely, pulling from that super intense black metal vocal style that you associate with the bestial side of Finland. But it's really, to me, Greek black metal sort of worship or praise, presented in a with more vitriol than you're traditionally used to getting. One of the benefits of these sort of CD updates is they haven't got to a point where I don't think any of these have been made or brought to vinyl yet, because they're younger or newer acts that don't have that kind of visibility or prominence yet within the black metal scene. So getting a chance to sort of see them at an early age in the project's career and hoping they progress into something new. This kind of CD series feels like that's kind of the benefit of it. And Ceremonial Torture is one of those, this is the first full length here. I'm interested to see where this goes. If it pulls back on the intensity and that was something that we get purely as a first album release, or if that's kind of the mission statement here, like this is going to bring a kind of nasty vocal presence to what will ultimately be more Greek black metal, and that just kind of be like the central piece of the band. So we'll see. Okay, so next up, Grave. So this is Grave Gnosis, or Gnosis, I should say. They are a Floridian black metal project on Vargeist, which is a pretty small label, I believe, out of South Carolina. But this is, I guess the band members have been around for a while within the Floridian black metal scene. But I want to say this is their second full length. And their style is a little bit more in the sort of, I don't want to say necessarily epic black metal, but like almost a Cult of Fire style, or something like Arturantas. It's that kind of really broad sweeping spiritualism, ritualism within black metal. 75 minutes here, and most of the songs are pushing that 8-minute mark. So these really broad sweeping, there's a saxophone and a cello that are going on here as well. Also, the production brings in this element of like industrial, like at times it reminded me of the more abrasive elements within some of the Bluthaus Nord albums. But it's a record that you just kind of let go of. You put it on and kind of let it sort of, it's an immersive experience rather than like a cerebral one. And because it's so broad sweeping, you don't pay attention a lot of to the individual sort of dynamics or the linear sort of progression. It's not like a lot of narrative, right? I guess is what I'm trying to say. You don't follow this record to the same extent, or at least I didn't. To me, it definitely, that side of worship or spiritual practice ties into this, to where we're kind of just talking, or we're just kind of listening to it and let it sort of sweep through the room. And 75 minutes is a good amount of time to listen to a black metal record. So I found myself just kind of, instead of trying to pinpoint very specific parts, I would just let this record go, and then sure enough, a moment would stop and grab my attention and pull me back in. And I have to say, you know, this feels ambitious beyond its sort of, I don't know what to say, like its label, or, you know, its label mates or peers. Essentially, like, this is a younger, smaller band, but the ambition of this record feels so much larger than typically what you're going to get of something on this level. Like if this had been put on something like, you know, an I Void Hanger release, I wouldn't be surprised. It is that kind of dimension to it, where it's really trying to do big things, or the band has major aspirations, and I don't mean that as like a, you know, statement against Vargeist as a record label. It's awesome that they signed a band like this, and they believe, because I think they play a lot of or they sign a lot of death metal, and but this is like a great and relatively easy to get your hands on. I think they're still available on CD. Local band here that's taking themselves, pretty seriously, and this is like a major investment, and you can tell that they spent a lot of time trying to put together a complete record that was true to their kind of collective vision. And I think for such a small band on a relatively small label, this is definitely overachieving. That is Grave Gnosis with Lux Negretto. This is Auraflame. I think that's how it's pronounced. They are from Quebec. And the past few days here in Lexington and a lot of the Midwest, we've had some pretty intense storms, and this has been like a go-to record for me in terms of the Quebec via Scandinavian cold weather black metal sound is definitely, they nail that. But what's new, right? So people whom they think probably of black metal from this region, they're gonna think of bands like Fortress, which is fair. And at some level, if that's like your baseline that you need to sort of inform you about what to expect, it's actually a good place to start. I wouldn't have a problem with that. It definitely nails like the walking through the intense wind and driving snow kind of winter sound that we associate come with black metal. But I guess what I would say in addition, so the other Quebec black metal release that got a lot of attention this year was the Spectral Wound. And it had like, the sonic quality to that record had this like very deliberate kind of high-end guitar hiss, right? That like lo-fi aspect to the rhythm section was accentuated in such a way that was very deliberate, and I think that was the entire point, right? Like they were going for that sound. So Auraflame, and by the way, I'm not going to pronounce the name of the record. It's in French, so I don't want to butcher that. I already did that with the Herzl. So I'll just put it in the description below, and you can find it out. But I think this is their debut full length. For me, I was talking about the Spectral Wound. So what makes this one different to me is the production here does not sound as, I don't know if well planned is the way I want to describe it, or curated. Maybe that's a better word. It doesn't sound nearly as curated as that Spectral Wound release does. So in that sense, it feels a little bit more, I don't know if the best way to describe it would be like honest, or even even lo-fi is the word, right? Simply in the sense that I don't think they got into the studio and were like, this is the sound we're chasing after, let's go after it. This feels more like they got in a room, strapped in their guitars, and wanted to play some black metal. With all of that sort of Quebec sound informing them. Beyond that, it reminds me a little bit of last year's Cenotaph, the French black metal band Cenotaph, Monte Verita, that Cenotaph release. Like, they share a similar characteristic where there's a melodic, this jumps back in, there's a melodic sensibility to it that isn't defined by like a cleaner guitar that sits on top of the riff structure. For me, Aetheric nailed that this year very early on. And so it's not that. It's more like because there is not a lead melodic piece sitting on top of the rest of the distortion, I want to take middle band of the frequency range, right? Essentially where those guitars lock in, there's a greater sense of depth and, dare I say, like, I don't know, warmth to it. It doesn't feel nearly as abrasive here as many lo-fi or raw black metal releases do. And the way they write riffs are these sort of long, arcing structures. So, well, it's not nearly as heavy or as deep as something like Hades or Eternus, right? It's not that like death metal sort of side of black metal. It's very much a black metal listen, but they just take their time in the transitions. And so it allows them to sort of gather a bit more weight underneath them. And given that still the guitars are still very much like a black metal thing, it just actually, instead of presenting like a death metal weight, it just gives them a little bit of a heavier melodic quality. I was thinking of, between Aetheric crossing off that piece there for me, and there was the band from France, Pessime, I want to say, that did like a very aggressive melodic black metal record. This was like a great atmospheric band that didn't go full on like Burzum style atmospheric. And it kind of stole the attention away from the Orlac, the French band Orlac, who put out a new record this year. This kind of took its place. They sound very different than that. Like, I think Cenotaph's a better reference point, but check them out. Okay, so that is Auraflame, and once, like I said, I'm not going to talk about the title. I messed that up. Next one here. This is Necromantical Invocation, and the title, Dogme el Ritual de la Maute Magic? My goodness. So Necromantic Ritual, there's a single person in it from whose name escapes me here, Cadiz Cuenta, and placing Coir amongst other bands in Greece. So here we get another sort of Greek black metal influence, and this, though, even to call it black metal may be a bit of a stretch. So this actually is almost like an ambient record, and it's essentially a demo. So it was put out, I think, self-released as a demo, and then Helter Skelter picked it up, which is part of Regain Records in Sweden, and it's a 30-minute demo, I guess, and 15 minutes of it is probably one of the most captivating black metal songs, if you want to call it that, this year. So the title track to this is one of the quieter records you will hear all year, or quieter songs, I should say. It is like an acoustic guitar, a piano, there may be, I don't know if it's a stand-up bass or an electric bass, and like a single operatic singer, and then sort of these whispered and hissed black metal, like almost spoken word, right? It's really interesting. I'm putting together this playlist and just listening to black metal records over and over and over, and you get used to a certain amount of like just cacophony always coming at you. So when you get a record like this or a song like this, and it just completely, the room goes quiet outside of these very sparse vocals and instrumentation, man, it's wild. It's super cool. I did not want it to end. And I think that's, always, something that you're searching for, is something that at 15 minutes long, it still wasn't enough. My captivation was absolutely invested in where this song was going to go. And I don't know where the project is, as a demo. I really hope they continue. I know that he's got a bunch of other projects going on, and this was a kind of black metal presentation and theater that was unlike what you were going to traditionally get from a black metal band. So probably as a solo project, it works best. I'll play a sample for you. But this release is Dogme et Ritual de la Fate Magie. I'll put a name here for so you can look it up and get all the, if you do want to hunt it down. But the intro, there's just 4 tracks. The beginning track and the last track very much serve as like, just the beginning and opening and closing chapter. The second track is very much like a piece of Greek black metal that you'd be used to. But it's that third track, man, like absolutely put me on my ass. One of my favorite black metal, and if you want to call it that, but one of my favorite black metal moments of the entire year. Please check this one out, or just listen to that track. You can really probably, if you don't want to chase after that, if you were to buy like the track individually, it'd be worth it. One of my favorite black metal moments this year.